All right, hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Collection Wars. My name is Gabe,
Michael,
and today we got a very, very special episode. I'm really excited about this one. I've seen his collection online already, and I'm sure a lot of you have already as well. So I'm really excited to have him on here. Michael, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, before we get started, I don't know if Jeff is even aware, but he is the guy that inspired me to move forward to build my gallery. So it was a video that I saw of Jeff doing a YouTube video on his collection at his old museum. And it was just so inspiring and whatnot. And he doesn't put himself out there. That's why I'm really grateful that he's here on the show today. And I'm excited to show his collection. This is, I guarantee you, this isn't something that you're going to see every day. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I actually came across his collection on, I think on a Facebook group. And somebody posted the video, and I was just like, oh my God, this collection is amazing.
Yeah, he's super cool guy.
So without further ado, let's bring in Jeff. And hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Hello, everybody.
What's up, Jeff?
How are you, Michael?
Man, good. I'm excited to have you.
Good, man. Thank you so much. I'm gonna put you in the hot seat here.
Hey, but before we kick off, Jeff, I just personally want to say thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know you're super busy, dude, every day, balls to the wall, and taking time to
make some time for my hobby. So it's nice to step out of what I normally do and jump into my hobby for a little bit and get excited about it.
Sounds real good, man.
Yeah, man. And it's always fun just talking Star Wars, especially the type of stuff that you collect, because everybody could relate to it. It's kind of where everybody started. So I guess maybe the first thing we should talk about, Jeff, before we even start showing your collection, what inspired you? Like, how did you get into Star Wars? Where did that love for Star Wars come from?
So I'm 46 years old, born in 75. So it was something we grew up with as kids, right? And we didn't have until we had Atari as kids, but I mean, you'd go to Toys R Us and it was just rows and rows and rows of G.I. Joes and Star Wars and Transformers and you name it. So, as kids, I used to, my dad was really tough on me when I was young. He used to raise birds, right? And that was probably 8 years old at the time when he started doing it. And so he had a birdhouse out back and he had like 300 birds out back. And he used to, every Saturday, he'd say, for $10, I'm going to pay you $10. You're going to work all day and you're going to clean out all the cages and you're going to do all the stuff and, get the birdhouse cleaned up and swept up. And I used to just hate him for it, to be honest with you at the time. But, early on, it was always, I was thinking about what I was going to go to Kmart for and what I was going to spend that $10 on, it was either some Star Wars or some G.I. Joe or, something like that. But I mean, I just couldn't ever, each day was like, I couldn't wait to do that. And then growing up, with Star Wars, my dad actually used to bring home, I had an older brother who's 5 years older, and he didn't really care for Star Wars as much, but my dad was really fair with us two boys. And so he used to bring home two figures quite often. If he ever went to Kmart, he'd always just grab two figures and he'd bring them home and he'd make us pick a hand. He'd put them behind his back and he'd make us pick a hand. And so we would pick which Star, we didn't know which character it was. And at the end, my brother would open them up, put them in the case and never touch them. And I can remember, going into his room because mine were all, worn out and, we used to put firecrackers on them. I mean, it was just, we loved our toys. And so I can remember always going into my brother's room and his were in the carrying cases and they were like flawless.
Man,
never touched, but so that's, it was just something that we grew up with. And then, truthfully in the 80s, I think we probably gave away most of our toys to Goodwill and things like that. And we all got into BMX bikes. That was a huge thing. And so then, I can remember we, got out of BMX bikes and sold that for my car stereo that, for my first car, and then, I was working at a pet store and worked there for all of high school and got out of right when I was in my 12th grade year, which was 1993. At the end of 93, I graduated in 93. I started doing construction right out of high school. And one of my close friends that I grew up with since I was 7, he was working with me as well. And we went to the job. We got out of the job early. We were just driving home and decided, you know what? Let's stop at this comic store. We used to stop, he used to always read comics and I used to love toys. So just for the hell of it, we stopped in this comic store. And it was right when the new Star Wars figures were coming out,
97 range.
Well, it was like 1995-ish. So my time is off a little bit. So it's probably 93, 94. It was probably right around 94. Yeah. So right around 94, going into 95, December of 90, December going into 95. Yeah. And, they had just put out like maybe 2 or 3 figures and they were at this comic store. And I was like, what in the world? What is that? And it just kind of sparked my interest. And they said, well, they're making Star Wars figures again. And I was like, what? I was like, at the store, really? And they said, yeah. And I said, so I didn't really think a whole lot of it. And we left the comic store. And like a week later, we were going to lunch over at a little mall and they had a little like KB toy store or something. Mm-hmm. And we were like, hey, let's go stop in there and just check it out. And we went over there and they had all the new figures in there. And that was the beginning of, me re-sparking what I loved as a kid, as far as just the interest. So as far as vintage goes, I was 18 years old at that time, 18, 19. We didn't, I'm still with my wife that I've been with since I was 17, and so we were saving up for getting married and getting a house and all that. So she's been with me ever since the very beginning of my collecting.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So she's been super supportive through the whole thing. But, basically I'd always said, I was collecting new stuff. And, mm-hmm. It was a great time to collect all the new stuff. And I'd always just said, if I could, maybe I'll just start collecting some of the loose figures, and this is before eBay. So, you just go and find them. You couldn't really, you'd have to go to a couple comic stores and you couldn't find, even if you had the money, you couldn't find everything you were looking for.
Right.
So condition really wasn't, as much of a concern. You'd find something. So it was fun for me. I put for the first year, probably took me a year to put together all the vintage loose figures and the play sets and all that. And so I got all those. And then, so many people were like, oh man, you need to start collecting the package stuff and this and that. I just said, I said, if I could find a collection first to start it, I would probably do it. And a friend of mine was he would help people refinance their houses and things like that. Mm-hmm. And it was funny. We had, this was back when we had only pagers. We didn't have cell phones. Right. And so he sends me a page and it was like 911, call me. Right. So I had to go find a phone. I call him and he says, I'm at this lady's house and she ran an orphanage, but she was the original purchase. She purchased all these original Star Wars. So she had probably 150 packaged carded figures and a bunch of boxes. She had tons of stuff. She had Master of the Universe. She just collected all kinds of stuff through the 80s, right? Yeah. And so we went through it, and it was back and forth on a text or on a pager, and I didn't know how much she wanted. I can remember he sent me back a page, and it said $4,000, right, for all of her Star Wars stuff. And at the time, I was like, she's out of her freaking mind. This is insane, And I literally told him, like, no, I don't even want to deal with that. That's just crazy to me, Yeah. But I didn't know anything about packaged vintage Star Wars at that time. I mean, zero. you know, nothing. And so like that was on a Thursday. It was on a Thursday day that he sent those to me. And I told him no Thursday, and I couldn't sleep Thursday night thinking about it. And I was like, man, I didn't even go look at it. And I just said, no, you know, I don't know what this could be. So I got up Friday morning and I called him up and I said, Cliff, I said, did you page her or did you tell her that I said no? And he said, no, I didn't tell her anything yet because she was going to lose her orphanage if she didn't come up with a certain amount of money to refinance her house. So he was just trying to figure out a way to help her. And I said, you know what? I said, she lived about a half an hour away from me. I said, you know what? I said, I might as well just go look at it and see what it is that, you know, that she had. And, you know, I didn't even know any, I mean, literally knew nothing. I had a friend that collected package stuff. So I went over there and I asked her, I said, how did you come up with your pricing? And at the time they had Lee's Toe Mark Guide. It was a magazine that was monthly.
Yep.
And she took the pricing out of there and she did 50% off just straight out of the book. Right. And I said, okay, well, at least, you know, not knowing exactly, you know, I said, you know, I think that's a fair deal for both of us. You know, I said, you're going to get current market minus whatever, because I'm going to buy the whole thing. So I said, all right. And so I didn't have $4,000. Right. So, but I did have my truck paid off. So it was the funniest thing. I went back to my parents. I was living at my parents' house still. And I went back to my parents and I said, hey, I need to borrow $4,000 for like one day because she needed it Monday morning. I said, I'm going to go. I called the bank Saturday and I said, hey, I said, can I give you my truck title and get a loan for $4,000? And they said, yeah. I said, okay, great. They said, but we can't do it until like, you know, Monday afternoon. So it was the funniest thing because I told my mom and dad, I said, I need to borrow $4,000. And my mom was like, you're out of your mind. What in God's name are you spending $4,000? And my dad was like, you know what? I trust him. I think he knows what he's doing. So my dad said, yeah. So they gave me $4,000, went and got the collection that morning, stopped back at the bank on my way home and got the money back for him and gave it to him. Right. And then it probably took me, you know, I don't know, 6-8 months to pay that off. And so I had my first collection, but it was absolutely, you know, that's what got me into collecting packaged items was that collection, which I still own. Probably 30% of that collection is still in my collection. That's how
I was going to ask you. That was going to be my question is, do you still have that?
Yeah, it was just like she picked them right off the shelf and never, you know, they were in flawless shape.
Yeah.
You know, to find a collection like that today would be just over the top, you know, unheard of.
Yeah.
You know, but that's what got me into vintage package Star Wars. And then, you know, we started working on eBay, you know, when eBay first came out. eBay actually, you know, my wife always says this is her only regret because when eBay first came out, they offered stock option to you if you were a seller. If you were the first 100 sellers,
wow,
in Colorado, we were the first, you know, there was a group of us, there was like 6 of us that we were trying it out, you know, because back then there was no PayPal, it was money orders, you know, and it was just like a trust system, but that's how we were, you know, we were buying out a toy shop magazine, you know, or some type of website, you know, and we just call somebody and you just have to send them a money order and they send you the item, you know. Yeah. That's how it was. There was no protection, no guarantee to anything, but it worked, you know. So it was really interesting. eBay came to us and said, hey, we're going to go, you know, live with our stock, whatever. And it was $6 a share that they offered it to us at, you know. It's like, my God, we thought about even at the time, you know, like we had 10 grand saved up, you know, that was like what we had in the bank. And she was like, we should just put all that and buy that stock, you know?
Yeah. Could you imagine?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So before we get into the actual collection, Jeff, on the intro, I don't know if I've ever told you, but you are the guy that inspired me. Okay. And I don't know if you know that, but what our show is designed to do is inspire collectors of all kinds out there watching us today. And what is, you know, there's so many, there's thousands and thousands of people who have these beautiful collections, but where it lacks is the way they display it, right? And or they don't have the room, or they're not knowledgeable about it.
Right.
So presentation, I think, is everything in anybody's collection to themselves, most importantly than anybody else.
Right.
When you started collecting and growing your collection like you did, so did you came out with an idea that, hey, I want to create a museum for myself that I can walk in and see. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because my very first house that we moved into, I added an addition on, and it had an upper room that had a pool table, but it was my first collectible room.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like, it was not, it wasn't as unique as what I learned to be able to do now, because it was my first time at it. And, there was no grading companies for toys. So you had acrylic cases, and, you had to come up with a really unique way to display, but I mean, I still just built wood shelves all over the walls, and, still did the whole room. But I don't know why I don't have pictures of that original room. It just bugs me to no end, because it would have been really cool to have that, just to showcase kind of where I first started versus where people now see me at.
Yeah.
I mean, I have when I first started, I was collecting the original set on each card back, where now I do every single variation of it. But so it was fun. It's still fun for me now. I still love doing that. There's still plenty of pieces I'm still after. So
yeah. And I what I really love about your story, though, that it's like, honestly, because we've had other collectors talk about, their childhood, and they've kept their toys all the way along, and yours is actually different than that. Even though you did have that passion with your toys, and you really enjoyed playing with them, you weren't necessarily the collector in your family. Your brother was the one that was kind of keeping it all clean. And then you actually got into it with the power of the red ones, right? The newer, the 1990 ones. Yeah. And that's what got you into that. And now it's like your collection is one of the best vintage collections I've seen. Like, it's crazy. So that kind of, your timeline is just so original, so different than most collectors that that we've talked to, and that's amazing. That's like, you're like the working man story kind of deal, right? Like you kind of you built up your collection from scratch, and that's amazing, and that's inspirational, because again, a lot of people think, including myself, right? Because a lot of people are like, it's too late to get into certain categories. Like I mean, it is a little too late to get into vintage because of the price, and the prices are crazy. So for me to even try to forget it. I'm gonna, my wife is gonna leave me from all the money I'll end up spending. But that's amazing how you grew your collection kind of at this point when it was the infancy of eBay and collecting, and when it kind of started globalizing the collection. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was so exciting, for when eBay first came out. Like I said before, it was so difficult just to find stuff, right?
Yeah.
We would wait for Toy Shop to come out, because our Brian's Toys would send out a monthly newsletter, and we would wait for that to come out, and just so that you could see, and you'd hurry up and open that thing up, and I'd be on the phone, and Brian was really good. He'd answer his phone pretty much any day of the week, almost any time of the day. So it'd be like 9:00 at night on a Sunday night. And I was like, oh man, I got to have this. I got to call him right now and see if I got it.
Yeah, that's fun.
That's awesome.
And we used to do little toy shows locally, and that's how I would, sell off some of my extras. But it was so great, to be able to find some of the stuff that you wanted, but it was still super tough before eBay.
Yeah. There's this little toy shop. So I grew up in like the Bay Area in California, and there's this little toy store called Time Tunnel. And I remember it was around that same time, around like 90, mid 90s. And it was right before eBay. And I remember he would have to go to trade shows and he would close the little store. Like he would go to like the toy convention and he would close the store for like a day or two. And I remember I was probably maybe like 12, 13 or something like that around that time. And I remember being so excited because of his haul, whatever he was going to bring back so I could look at it. So yeah, I mean, back then I definitely remember that. As a collector, it was tough to get a lot of these pieces.
Yeah,
Well, I think we've been torturing the viewers.
I know.
We need to get into Jeff's collection.
Let's do this.
And Jeff, once we go ahead, Gabe.
I'm gonna just kind of randomly go. They're not really organized in any kind of order. We're just gonna kind of go through it, and you just walk us through it. All right.
Sure.
So let me.
Oh my gosh.
All right. So what you're looking at here is the mint and sealed box collection, which to me is
Wow.
Anymore, this is, in my opinion, one of the holy grails of vintage collecting, because vintage sealed box items are so tough to come by now. So this collection, I mean, you can see I still got about 5 pieces, and that's, I mean, you're talking 10, 12 years looking for some of these last pieces that I need. You know, they're just, you know, it's not that I'm super picky about condition, yes, but you know, it doesn't need to be pristine anymore for me at all. You know, to fill a gap. If it's pretty nice and it's sealed, you know, it'd be great to just add it to the collection, and then maybe one day I can find an upgrade. But you know, this collection, this as you said earlier, to try to put together something now, vintage wise. This would be a massive challenge.
Yeah.
You know, carded figures, you could put together the 98 figures and, you know, on some card, right? And in some type of condition, and you still could do that, you know, but to try to put together the mint and seal box collection is just, I couldn't even fathom.
And every one of these packaged pieces right here have been graded, or are they sealed, or where are you at on that?
Every one of them. There's an Empire Jawa Sandcrawler, which I'm looking for a sticker sheet so that I can send it in, because it'll grade qualified, which is fine with me. Qualified means it's never been touched or put together, and the stick, you know.
Right.
It's a Canadian version, but it's the only way you can get the Empire logo on the box.
Yeah.
So, but otherwise, yeah, most everything except for the figures in the display bin is AFA graded.
So, Jeff, let me ask you about that really quick. So the grading part of it, I mean, how does that work with the vintage figures? So can you just run really quick, like just a kind of how to, is that you just mail them?
You know, and truthfully, I'm going to say 95% of my collection, I bought not graded.
Okay.
You know, and it's been over years and years and years, and I sent it in to get graded. For one, I love the acrylic. I used to, when I was telling you about originally, before grading company came out, you know, you had sliding bottom cases for the figures, you know, but they were bigger and bulkier, and they just didn't look as nice, and they didn't, you know, I didn't like how they held the figure inside. So when I decided to grade my collection, it was dirt cheap at the time. I don't even know how they were making any money when they first started. I sent in my entire carded collection, which was like 275 figures. And I said, don't grade them all right now. I said, just grade, you know, like 50 of them and send 50. And then wait a month and grade another 50. I was really close friends with Tom Derby, who originally owned Cloud City Collectibles, but now does, you know, he bought AFA and brought it to Georgia. So when he did that, I felt confident. I said, look, I'm going to send you all my figures, and you just get them graded for me over time. So, but yeah, it's an easy process. It's so popular now that the time that it takes, it used to be like, you know, when it first started, I could get stuff turned around 2 weeks. Now it's like 4 months. So, you know, it's super, super challenging if you want to get things graded. People don't have the patience level, you know, for it. So a lot of people, and that's what drives a lot of the cost up, because they don't have the patience to find it raw and then send it in, because they're not going to get the gratification of that final grade for 4 or 5 months from the time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. So it's easier for them to find a graded piece online.
Right.
They're going to pay more for it, but they're going to get that instant gratification.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And I think the trust issue too. I mean, for me personally, I would be like, really. I mean, obviously, these companies are really reputable now, but in the early days,
back then it was, if I didn't know Tom had purchased it at the time, there's no way I wouldn't even, because when the AFA first started, they really didn't get off the ground at all, because they were out of Florida and nobody knew anybody there. So it was very challenging to give them any kind of collectibles.
Yeah.
You just didn't know who they were. And so that's why Tom saw them probably not doing so well and said, you know what? Everybody knows who I am in the vintage community. I think that if I bought this, then, and he worked there for probably, I don't know, the first 6 years every day, so to build up that reputation and to build up the trust, to where now Chad runs the whole place, I think, himself, and Tom just comes in to do authentication.
Nice.
Just the way everything, obviously, you were all a part of the design on this setup, Jeff. It's amazing. The ceilings. I've already told you about that pre-show, man. I am just in awe. It's so beautiful.
So that's my my biggest passion is I've been an interior trimmer. I was in the field working interior trim for probably 15 years. And started running my own company after 12 years of doing it. And then by the 15th year, I was able to not have to go out to the field and really just start to run a company. But it's, that's one of my biggest passions. I mean, I build homes because I just love the design and the design build factor to it. I can be so creative and, I mean, everything in the whole basement, I mean, that's like, the funnest thing for me was to figure out from the last display at the last house, I was able to know exactly how much space I needed when I was building this house. And so I knew exactly what size each display needed to be, because in my last house, this collection, the box collection, was actually in like 4 different cases. So I thought to myself, this is a monster case. This is probably 3, 6, 9, 12, 24 foot wide. So it's a big showcase.
Yeah.
And before you switch real quick, just for viewers that are looking at this right now, some of them don't know, but you have duplicate of the boxes and whatnot. And I know we can talk about like how you do that with the figures, which is amazing. Yeah. But so people know out there, you have all of the different versions. Is that right? Of like,
so it's got different offers that have on the boxes or different logos. So you'll go from a Star Wars logo to an Empire logo. Like when you're looking at the Dagobahs right in the center, it looks like I got 4 of the same exact things. Yeah. There's actually one with no offer on it, one with an offer, one with an offer with a red logo on the side of the box, and then the 4th one's actually a alternate photo that they shot for the box. There's actually like 2 or 3 more variants to that. But, I had 2 other ones, but when I created this display, I was like, well, a couple of these just aren't going to make the cut. So,
I'm gonna move to the next picture here.
Yep. Oh man.
So that's I'm so glad I put that together when I did. His name is Robert. He bought the display, not with the figures, but the display, and the box that's beneath it is the box that was the original shipping box with that display, and it would come with all 48 figures. I was at his house, and I actually bought a huge part of his collection probably 10 years ago because he was just wanting to sell it in Vegas. And so I went ahead and went out there, and we did the deal for that. And he wanted to keep all of his display pieces, that were stuff like this. And I just told him, I said, if you ever sell that, I would love to have that. And so probably about 4 or 5 years ago, he sent me a message on Facebook and said, Jeff, I don't want to see this go in anybody else's collection. It should go into yours, and let's come up with a price. And so we came up with a price that we were both happy with, and it was great because it was right before Disney hit, and so I started buying the 12 packs back then, and they were really, everybody thought Star Wars figures were like, dead almost at that time, and so I just started buying all
the figures are separate.
Yeah, so all the figures I bought separately.
Okay. Now, is that the telescoping Farm Boy Luke right there?
It's not the telescoping. I do. I got another story about that one.
Okay.
Hey, I just need you to know, Jeff, we've got this because Gabe's learning in every episode we're talking. He's learning about the telescoping Luke. So
right.
Anyways,
so this piece, is obviously it's probably one of the rarest vintage pieces out there. Right? There's guys who have the display, but they, this display is in like almost like it's never been touched condition. So I don't even know that it was ever used. So that's why when I saw it, I was just in such awe of how, the condition of it.
I've seen a beat up one, Jeff, graded for over just for the display was $20,000.
Yeah, there's some of them that go for quite a bit of money. So
yeah, it's crazy money.
I quit mentally looking at the prices of my collection anymore, to be honest with you, because it's got so crazy, and it's a fortunate thing. I told my family, I said, something ever happened to me, I said, you guys are set for life just with my collection,
Yeah.
So, but so that was a pretty cool thing that ended up just happening over time. I never got into it for the money of it because I would generally keep all my own collection. I've sold a couple pieces out of my collection, which I'm in the current time right now. I'm trying to buy them back.
That's like the typical story, right? We all done that when we sell something. We're like, man, I regret it every day.
Yeah, but truthfully, it wasn't the need of money that changed my mind. There was a conversation. I had these 3-packs. There's only 16 of them, and so I've really done my life this way. I was on the phone with Tom Derby talking to him, and we were just talking about 3-packs, and he was telling me he was putting together a set of 3-packs for Kevin, the producer of Marvel movies. So I don't know what his last name is, but and he said, Jeff, he says, it's going to be, probably, I'll just bring up a number. It's going to be $300,000 by the time I think I'm going to put this set together. And I just thought, wow, that's just unreal. Yeah. And so at that time, this was probably 2012, right around 2012 or 13. I had never sold anything out of my collection. I generally don't ever anyhow. Mm-hmm. We went and looked at some property, which was the property I live on now. And when we went to look at the property, we thought the property was going to be just, like $500,000 for the property. Ended up being the property was $225,000, right? And for the land. And so, my wife and I were like, all right, no, that sounds really good, but we didn't know for sure if we wanted to move or, what we were going to do, but we thought it was really awesome. So I go back home, and like a week goes by, and Tom calls me back, and we were just talking over the phone, and I said, Tom, I said, I wouldn't, if you really could sell my set for something like that, I wouldn't be opposed to it right now. And he says, well, he's already got half of them, and so I don't know how it's going to work if I did. And he was really excited because I've never sold anything back to him out of my collection. And, so he calls him, and Kevin figured out he needed half of them, and another guy in another country wanted the other half. And so he calls me back, and he says, look, I can get you $225,000 for the set, right? And I thought, you know what? I said, I looked at my wife, and she's the one who convinced me to buy the set for $100,000 back in 2009 at an auction, right? And I looked at her and I said, you know what? I've never sold my collection. I've never sold anything. I said, but this is just almost an omen that this lot is the same exact price that I just got offered for my 3-packs. I said, I almost just feel like that's like God's will to say, you know what, sell that. You can recollect them later, but use that to fund the house, and and it ended up being like one of the greatest decisions I ever made in hindsight. I'll tell you why now. I just started recollecting them, but there's been so many people that have put together this set now that they're not as rare. Right. So there's been more sets. When my set was complete, it was the highest graded set in the world, and there was only probably 4 complete sets in the world. Now there's probably, I don't know how many, but the demand for them is not as high.
Yeah.
So right now, I put some fillers out, and I'm up to like 7 out of the 16 right now, and for probably the same price I originally paid for my original set.
Oh wow!
It's probably what I'll be able to put them together for. So it's just a fun thing that everything works that way, and it's been a God's blessing that we've always looked at our property like that's part of the Star Wars life to us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I mean, who could say that, right? That you sold a piece of your collection to buy this, the home that you're gonna, right? Maybe live there for the rest of your life. That's amazing.
Right.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh wow.
So this is the very beginning. That's the the early bird certificate. They couldn't get figures out in the stores by Christmas in 1977, so they started putting the early bird certificate, which is in the center there, out of the stores just because they had such a high demand. And then inside the certificate, you can mail away, and you get the first 4 characters in a box.
Yeah.
So that's how the characters first came to life, was in that box, not on a card or anything. So
right, and so that's how they shipped them in this white shipper box.
Yeah, that was the shipper box. Yep. And so the piece above it was the figures that was in it, and that's just the paperwork on the right of it.
Were those double telescoping, or
was it? Yeah, one on the left is a double telescoping. The one on the right is not. That's the non-double telescoping.
Okay. Because that's what I'm working on in my vintage collection right now. Jeff is that set right now. I'm waiting to get one of those actually right now.
Yeah, it's this has become one of the most popular sets for vintage to really get the beginning of it all, right?
Yeah.
So many guys, didn't used to get into this as much, back when I first was getting mine years ago. I can remember I was at Star Wars Celebration 4, and I didn't even know about the set, right? Because they didn't have Facebook groups and everything.
Yeah.
Where information becomes so fluid that everybody knows kind of everything now. Back then I can remember a guy was putting stuff in a showcase, and he had one of these white boxes, and I was like, what is that? And he had like $300 on it, and I was like, what is it? And he was like, oh, these are the first 4 figures.
Wow. $300.
Cool. I think I'm going to grab it, right? and it was, even at the time, it was worth like probably $2,000. But regardless of that, I didn't. It was great that I fell into that, and that's actually the first set on that far left. That was the first set I got.
Are those boxes blank, or do you have them flipped over where you don't see the addresses?
Yeah, we have them flipped over where you don't see the addresses.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Now
cool.
I can tell you a quick story. So I go to a bunch of different conventions, and we were at Chicago one year. This is probably, I want to say, 12, 15 years ago. And I got a friend of mine into collecting vintage Star Wars, and we were at the show, and I had another friend that was there he does nothing but sells toys for a living, but he wasn't set up there. And we were just walking around. We were kind of at the end of the show, and I ran into him, and his name's Chris Neal, and he said, Jeff, he says, I've got a couple of Star Wars pieces if you want to look at them, right? And he said, they're out in my truck. And so I go out to his truck, and he pulls out 2 boxes, and they were the early bird sets. And I mean, flawless as I've ever seen in my life, right? And they didn't have, they did not have address labels on them. And so I was like, well, what in the world? And I trust Chris, heavily. I mean, he's one of the most trustworthy guys in collecting. And so I said, Chris, what's the deal? Why don't these have addresses on it? He says, what these are, he bought 4 of them, I think, from one guy, or 3 of them. maybe it was 3. Yeah, it was 3. He bought 3, and he sold 1. He says, but the guy he bought them from had 3 boys, and back in 1977, his boys were teenagers. And if you opened a checking account, Lucas tagged up with banks, and he gave them free early bird mailers as gifts that if kids signed up for their own checking account, they got a free mailer.
That's cool.
And so that's how they did. And I didn't know that backstory, but it was really cool to understand. He would do this with like the Vinyl Cape Jawa. When they pulled the Vinyl Cape Jawas, they pulled them from production and they put them into movie theaters to give away.
Wow.
So because the line was so popular that they didn't think that they thought the Jawa was small enough that we could actually do a cloth cape and still be financially fine, profitable doing the cloth capes. So that's kind of how he worked back then, to be able to still get product into as many people's hands as possible. And then all of a sudden they realized, wow, we went to the movie theater and we just got this, and it's pretty rare. You can't even find it at the store. Stuff was crazy back then. I bought a collection from a lady that was 18 years old, who worked at like a little toy store or whatever. And she said every time that they would stock the shelf, she would be the one stocking them. Mm-hmm. They would get a Star Wars shipment. She said there'd be 100 people back then waiting out front to come buy all the new Star Wars collectibles.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she was 18. She thought, what in the world is so, crazy about this? She was putting away like 1 or 2 every single time she would pack them at 18 years old. She ended up with 35 of them. Right. This is just another quick story. It's just that's what's so great about this.
Oh, it's great.
Stories of life.
Yes.
So she put an ad on Craigslist probably 10 or 12 years ago, and she was selling 12 backs, the original figures. And so when I went to look at them, I was like, man, these things are perfect shape. They're flawless. And the story was exactly that she worked at a toy store. She put them in. She raised 3 boys. And they bought their first house when she was, I think, 19 or 20, got married young, and they had 3 boys. These figures stayed in a box in top of her closet for like 18 or 20 years or forever, right?
Yeah.
And she was going to move, and so they decided to start moving stuff. The kids were all old, much older then. Pulled everything down, and they were just like, wow, you should put an ad on Craigslist,
That's crazy.
Right?
It's like those barnyard finds, right, that you hear about, where these like old Mustangs, and like that's kind of the same deal. That's insane.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what's so great about collecting and all of it. When I'll have people come to the house. I live in a golf community, and all these people are so intrigued, by my collection because they're golfers and that's their hobby, right? And I'm known as the Star Wars guy in the whole mix of all of it. And they come over, and the way I explain it to them, I said, a lot of these pieces are story of my life.
Yeah.
It's almost like pictures of my life that I could tell you a story behind.
Wow.
I flew out to Canada and was in an ice storm, and just crazy things.
And that's what it's about. And that's really why we wanted to start this show, because a lot of people see these collections online and they see, but they don't realize that there's all these backstories. There's so much more, meaning behind them. It's so great to get some of these stories out, man. This is awesome.
Right. No, that's what it's all about. I mean, even when I have friends, we have friends come from out of town that come to visit, and they know what they're looking at.
Right.
But we share, lifetime. I've known friends in the hobby I've been in the hobby for, I'm 46 now. So since I was basically 18 years old.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 28, 29 years now. So it's just been, and some of those same people are still collecting today, and we still meet up at shows, and we have
that's what we were actually talking about, that a lot of the best relationships and friendships come out of collecting and getting into that. And it's just such a cool thing, and especially the Star Wars community, right? The Star Wars community just ends up clicking, and we all share kind of a similar just love for Star Wars, and it's just such a great thing. So Jeff, right here, what are we looking at? These are all the original.
That's all the carrying cases.
Yeah.
So that's just, you've got your Star Wars carrying case, you've got your Empire logo on a Star Wars carrying case, which is the most rare out of all of them. That's the top right.
Yeah.
Now, I noticed, so I had this R2 with the pop-up lightsaber that I see right here. Why do you keep it with the C3PO carrier? Is a special reason?
So that's a unique piece that I just got that piece in the last 6 months, right? And so originally in KB, they had the C3PO cases, and they just weren't selling, right? They were some of the last things that were just sitting on the shelves and sitting on the shelves.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, the Power of the Force figures were setting because, people just, the line died off, and that's why they stopped. So what they would do is they would staple or they would tape figures to the carrying case at KB, and they would throw it out there for a discount to try to get rid of more stuff. And so this is a really interesting piece because I've never seen one that didn't have the tape that was just stapled. Well, this came from a local guy who's very new and he doesn't know practically anything about Star Wars. And he ran into a lady that she was the original owner of this. It was a gift to her. And so they don't know if somebody, was at the KB, and when they were doing it, instead of just wrapping it up with tape, because they would staple it and they would tape it, and then they would probably throw it in a bin is how they probably selling them. But this one was so crisp and clean that, I'd never seen it. And so when he showed it to me, I was like, man, I would love to have that for my collection. It's just so unique. And, realistically, what I paid for it was basically what each item is worth. What a sealed case is worth, what the R2 and what the Han carbonate is worth. So I said, even if somebody stapled them on their own, I said, it's a really fun piece to talk about.
Yeah, they're unpunched, right? I could tell that.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Scroll up, Gabe. Let me see the top of the because I want to see what if I have.
So you see the very top right there, the top left. That's the original Star Wars case, but that's the mailer. So that was, that was probably a Ford's or a Sears or somewhere. That you could actually get that. So that's why it's got the mailer box.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm looking right now, and I thought I had all of them, but I guess I don't.
Yeah, see, so
one on the top left. The top right.
The top left is the Star Wars. Top right's Star Wars with the Empire logo, which is the most difficult sealed.
Yeah.
Then right below it is just it's the same case as the top left, but it's just the case by itself. And then you got the two Empire cases that are the different pictures. Then you got the
I have all of those. Yeah, those are the ones I have all of. I never knew about those top two, Jeff. Never knew about those.
Yeah. I have friends still looking for that top right case that they've been looking for it for over 15 years.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. Look at that.
It's funny too, because the only reason I got that case is when I did sell my 3-packs to Tom. I told him at the time, I said, look, there's two items I'd been looking for. One was a loose figure and one was that case. And I knew he had them, but he just, I think he was just holding them. I said, I would love to own those. And so he went ahead and, put those in the deal for me.
That's awesome.
So I added them to my thing. So I'm going to tell you that Empire logo one, I have not seen sealed in years.
Yeah.
So here you're looking at the Revenge Proof set. So I generally don't collect prototype anything, but this was something that I contemplated for many years because I had seen them many, many times. And so one guy, this is probably 15 years ago or 18 years ago, early days of eBay, one guy started posting, like he posted 15 of them open auction, started them at like $10 a piece, and I was watching them and they were ending like in the $100 range, 125 to 150, and I was like, man, that's really not that bad. I thought they were pretty cool, and we just didn't have a true gauge of exactly what the cost of certain things were when you first start to see them. And so when he started, he did the first set. When he started listing the second set, I was like, I'm going to try to win, as many as I can of these. And so I started bidding like 225 a piece or something. and I was winning like every single one. And so after I won, I just emailed him, because back then you could email, you could talk to these people, everything on eBay.
Yeah.
And so I just emailed him and said, hey, give me a call real quick. And I called him. I said, hey, do you have the rest of the set? I said, I'll just give you the average price that all of them are selling for, and I'll just pay you that for the rest of the set. And so, I missed out on the first probably 20, but I bought the rest of the set all at that time, and then had to recollect the 20, which wasn't, it didn't even take me that long at that time to do that.
And Jeff, we talked to a friend of ours, Chris, that collects vintage, and he has a few blanks, like it was like his grail pieces on a Millennium Falcon, right, Gabe?
Oh yeah, it was a Millennium Falcon one. Yeah.
So what's the real, not that I know he knows, but just what's the story on these, and like where did they come from?
Revenge of the Jedi, right, was supposed to be the name of the movie,
right?
And they, so Kenner, the toy producing company, they were going to be producing the toys, as they always did, and they'd come out with the new toys right before the movie hits, so that they could put them out and they could sell a ton. So a week before Return of the Jedi launched at the theaters, Lucas decided that Jedis don't revenge, so he changed the name at the time from Revenge back to something that he felt better about. So he changed it to Return of the Jedi, and so at that time somebody had already made these proofs, like 40 sets. This is the story. There was 40 sets that somehow were produced, never with figures on them, but there was 40 complete sets that somebody put together at Kenner. And somebody just walked out with the sets as soon as the name changed. Mm-hmm. And then, they just got distributed over time, way back when. So there was probably, I can remember talking to guys that said, yeah, there was complete sets, for $1,000 right when they first came out,
Wow.
Back in the late 80s, on the toy shop, they would have like a complete set for that or cheaper,
Yeah.
What was cool back then, you didn't have to worry about all the remakes and the copycats and stuff.
Sure.
Back then, you knew everything was legit. Now everything's and it's okay for people that don't have the money. I'm not against it, but it sure makes it hard on, the value of original. You know what I'm trying to say, right, Jeff?
Yeah, that's truthfully why so many people, and we're grateful for a grading company like the grading companies that are out there. Yeah. So you can just have, that reassurance that it's somebody authenticated it, that they're a third party stating that this is definitely the real deal.
Yeah.
So I can look at many of things, and could over the years, but if it was something I never saw, I can remember I was in a toy show, and I was, this one I was trying to put together the first 96 characters, and we were at a toy show, and there was a figure called Nikto on a Power of the Force card, and it came with a Warrock coin, which Warrock is the Ewok. Mm-hmm. And so when it was hanging on the wall, I was like, why does that have Warrock's coin? I just thought for sure there's no way that should have a Nikto coin, because you just didn't have references back then. And so I passed on it, right? I was like, no, that's ridiculous. And then after we left the show, I talked to somebody on the phone. They're like, oh no, that's how he was packaged. He was never packaged with his own coin. It was always a Warrock coin, right? So I was like, oh man, because they never made a Nikto coin, right? So I kicked myself, because it was a $225 figure at the time to buy, and now it's, just to give you an example, that's one of the most rare Power of the Force figures now. Probably worth anywhere from, in great shape, $8 to $10 grand. So, but yeah, it was just one of those things where if you just didn't have enough information, or you didn't know somebody, there was just certain things that you just, you either just took a gamble on, and thankfully, knock on wood, I was able to really, but they're just like you said, Michael, there wasn't as many fakes back then, so most of the time when you ran into something, you just had to worry if it was resealed.
Right.
There was, there was a time when people were reselling stuff, and so you just had to worry about that and know what you were looking for.
Hey Jeff, I know what is this top box right here? The one
That's
where
blank proof. Yeah,
so
that's a blank.
Oh wow.
So it's part of there's 51 total proof cards that are revenge, and that's the blank proof.
Mm.
So that's just the one that they use, and they would superimpose whatever picture.
Yeah. Essentially, they would come. In production, they would come up with different templates.
Mhm.
And I don't know enough about proof cards to really
Mhm.
go full in depth, but I've seen so many different things now where you'll see like 5 or 6 different variants of the same one that were what they were coming up with to come to the right coloring, to come to the right backgrounds and all that. But this was just a blank proof. This is probably a way that they would see what the Revenge logo looked like on the card.
That's such a cool piece. So I'm gonna go to this one. So obviously here we're getting a little bit more of a picture of now your museum. Square footage. Just because I've seen some videos, but it's a pretty large space, right, Jeff?
Yeah, it's just over 3,800 square foot finished, and there's a bedroom, a wine room, and a sauna and a bathroom that's not used for the collection. So it's probably I'm gonna say it's probably 74 or 5. It's probably like 34 or 30, 33 to 3,400 square foot of display space.
Mm-hmm.
But like any collector, I mean, you could fill up. If I had 4 of these, I'd think of other things. Because I just love to collect. I love the hunt. I love the whole deal to it. It's not trying to build up a financial empire more than it's trying to. I love the hunt. I love to try to find things. Even like today, right? I mean, it's tougher today to find things, and it's more money, and it's even more mentally challenging for me. Thankfully I'm financially well, but I still have a tough time spending what certain pieces are today, because I'm like, oh my Lord, I can remember seeing that. Like for instance, the rocket firing Boba Fett, right? I mean, I could have bought that piece 10 times for 10 grand, and now it's like 180 grand.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
The values of all collectibles really right now. All collectibles, cards, and you name it. I mean, comics, cards, everything.
You know what's funny? I actually just watched a documentary on Blockbuster last night, and they were talking about how there's this kind of resurgence of 80s and 90s collecting, and this whole nostalgia, because I think people, in their 40s and 50s that grew up on this now have disposable income where they're able to go back and collect some of this stuff. So there's just this giant boom right now in collecting anything from that era, from the 80s and early 90s. So it's kind of interesting that you mentioned that, because it's happening now.
It's a lot of that, right? There's a lot of that going on, but there's a lot of. I've got neighbors in here that they're like, Jeff, it would be exciting if you told me what would be really great. It'd be fun to have like some of the best comics out there instead of money in the stock market and things like that, because I'll show them things and show them how they valued over the years compared to now, and they're like, wow, man, that would be so cool, because they have something in their hands. It's not just giving their money to somebody else to try to make money. And so it's really unique, because there's a lot of investors right now that are buying some of the rarest stuff. I mean, we're seeing the highest pricing for comics and sports cards right now than we've ever seen in life.
Wow.
And you're seeing like Michael Jordan's rookie card sell for almost 400 grand if it's graded 10, where 10 years ago that could have been I don't know exactly, but I mean, a friend of mine bought 10 of them and put them away. He had 10 of them and he put them away, and he just sold them a month ago. Yeah. So, I mean, unbelievable, amounts of money that's just insane right now that people are spending because they just want some of the coolest, best stuff, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, if you have big stock market and big money in the bank, you can't share it with the world. So it's just, they look at it like, you know what, let's put some of our stuff into things that we would enjoy, you know, having conversations about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Gabe, what you were just talking about from the 80s and whatnot, Jeff was talking early on in the show about he was getting into BMX. And have you seen that, Jeff? A lot of people now on BMX like the 80s.
It's a big deal now.
It's huge. My cousin's got 3 restored BMX bikes, and he's got like 10 grand in his bike. It's like, what the heck? That's crazy.
Right.
Yeah, no, everything, like even like Karate Kid, all the, you know, it's right now it's such a big thing because of the Cobra Kai. Like it just all of those older franchises are all coming back. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yep.
So Jeff, is there any specific kind of organization that you could
if you
walk us through here?
Show you, if you can go through the other, I took a couple other pictures of the card collection to kind of show you. Let me see if I see them.
I got the loose ones.
No, not yet. Not yet.
Yeah, you should have more pictures of the carded collection.
Oh, I don't. You want to, Jeff? Do you want to send those to me? Or do you have them on your phone, or are you?
Yeah, I can just text them to you real quick.
Yeah, and then I'll shoot them on the computer.
Yeah, I'll send them to you because I thought
While he's doing that, let's go to his Regal Robot Chewbacca. Okay, so viewers.
Let's do that. So here it is. That's beautiful.
Yeah, as far as I know, for New Hope, that's the second one that Tom produced out there, and of course has a different stance than the one that he made for me.
Yeah.
Are you happy with the bowcaster? I haven't seen it up close.
That's definitely one of the, you know, like anybody that comes into the basement, they're just in awe.
Yeah.
When they see that piece. I mean, it's so exactly, it feels like he's there.
Yeah.
I mean, Regal Robot, as you know, Michael, is they just did such a killer job on it. I was just over the top. I mean, I probably have more friends that know nothing about Star Wars that have pictures of them with Chewie, right?
Yeah.
Than anything else, right?
Yeah, you know, that's what they do here in my gallery too. They all get next to Chewie and take pictures with Chewie.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Okay, so here you go. So the organization of this starts at the far left on this picture. And so it starts out with the first 12 characters, starting from the top going down. So it's all the Lukes, all the Leias, all the Bens, all the Chewies, all the Stormtroopers. And so it goes from top to bottom, and then it starts to wrap around that curve where, you know, you're going into the Empire, starting at the top, going down into Jedis, and it wraps all the way around to the Revenge display, which you were looking at. Like if you go to that display right above it, that's a curved wall section. So that kind of curves all the way around inside there, all the way back to right on the end of that picture on the right. You can see where the Revenge proofs start.
Yeah, it's displayed so beautiful, right, Gabe? Man,
that's amazing. I mean, obviously the collection itself is mind blowing, but I love it. I love the way you have it set up. It's just so clean, so organized, and I mean, again, I think that's half of the fun part of collecting, in my opinion, is setting it up, putting it up how you want to.
You know, I don't ever call out any collectors out there, but I mean, there are collections that are worth like millions. It's like, it just kills me to see them like put collections on metal showcases. If they've got I mean, you're talking about one.
I think I know 2 of them that you're talking about.
It's like it seems like if they just they had the space, if they would have just finished it out properly,
right?
You know, with display cases and glass cases. And
I actually know 3. I know 3 of them.
Yeah, it just blows me away that, you know, they'll spend millions of dollars. I mean, just unbelievable amounts of money, and then they just won't spend that money. You know, and we're not looking at you know, I did all the building myself. So yes, you know, if I would have had to pay somebody to do this, it would have been expensive, but it's not like, you know, it's probably, I don't know, a fifth of what they spend in their collection,
Of course.
you know, or a tenth that they could have spent on their, you know, display, just like yourself, Michael. I mean, you know exactly how much it costs to do your gallery.
Right.
You know, it's not cheap, but at the end, that's what sets it apart from any. You know, there's a lot of guys who collect a lot of stuff I do, but it does set mine off so differently. You know, and speaks out so differently to so many people, just because of the different display that it has.
Yeah, no, and it's also such a conversation piece too, because you know, when you have people over, you're able to kind of walk them through, literally through history, right? You're able to say, look, here's the evolution of this one figure, and here's, you know, how it all came about, and this is the first one, and then this is the last one, and you could literally go through all of them like that. And that's, for me, that's the most impressive part, because it literally is. You have a museum inside your house. That's exactly what it is.
I explain it to people when they come over. Majority of it now, my old house had, you know, I had a ton of modern, and I was collecting modern at the same time. I knew that, you know, it was already getting to a point where they were making so many modern things that it just was too much.
Repros, same packaging.
Yeah, and so I just said, forget it. I said, when we move into the new place, it's going to be 1977 to 1985.
Nice.
Very little, if anything, you know, that's new.
Yeah.
So, because that's my true passion, to be honest. I mean, it's easy to get caught up, and that's really why I have a variant collection, because I collected the first of every single card, and I had every single one of them, you know, probably up till 10 years ago. I had all 96 characters on every card, so there was 240 figures total.
Yeah.
So after I completed that, I just, you know, I started buying hot toys of all kinds of other lines, and just because I love to collect, and it's just it's an addiction, really.
Yeah.
You just enjoy collecting. You see a bunch of stuff that looks really cool, and you like to display things. And I started collecting a bunch of that, and it just didn't get, you know, it didn't hit me like the vintage stuff did. It didn't affect me like vintage. So that's why I want to say 10 or 12 years ago is when I decided I'm going to collect every single card front variation, you know, of every figure, because that's what I love. And so it was kind of cool, all the stuff that I bought, which was, you know, hot toys and a whole bunch of other stuff, and my modern stuff. I sold all of that and turned it into my vintage collection, which would be almost impossible to do today. You wouldn't even be able to buy much anything. But when I was buying every card variation, this is before Disney announced, so there was an abundance of stuff. People were selling their whole collections, and, you know, you could find stuff just everywhere, and you could still find, you know, untouched collections of original owners quite often.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. I mean, and that's the one thing I keep on telling Michael. I was like, obviously I can't do this anymore, right? I can't get into this in the same scale that, you know, that you guys can. But I definitely want to pick up some of just the ones that really I have a really strong attachment to, you know, as a kid. And at least those, you know, I'll be able to find a few of those. But this is amazing. I love the way you have this set up.
That's the amount of comments that I get since I've kicked off my personal videos, because I was kind of like Jeff, you know, I never I would just share my gallery pics with people like Jeff and whatnot, but the amount of feedback is all positive. I mean, 99.99 is positive comments of what it has done for them and to inspire them to what they're going to start doing, you know, and building, and whether it's, you know, a spare bedroom or whatever it may be. And that's, at the end of the day, that's all that matters, is what it's done for that particular person and what the collection does for that person. I mean, you can have, like, I know Jeff, I remember watching his first video, and he didn't have any of his original that he had found. Like, I think he had a card, right? Just a card back, right?
Just a card back. Yep.
And just what that card back did for him, because that was his when he was a kid.
Yeah.
And you compare.
Everybody asks, you know, what would you grab? You know, you always have the people that always say, what would you grab, if there was a fire? Because they would just know what is really cool to me. And, there's two pieces. It would be the card back for one, and it would be got an original Thundercat. So I'll tell you a real quick story about that.
Nice.
So I have a Lion-O from the Thundercat line.
Yeah.
And so we used to go out on date night, my wife and I, when our kids were younger, and my parents would always watch my kids, and they still live in the same house that I grew up in. And so we're out at date night. My son's 10 years old at this time. Okay. And so we just gave him a phone for our, convenience. And so we gave him a phone, and we're sitting at dinner, and he texts me a picture holding a Lion-O. Now, keep in mind, I did not have one toy left from my childhood, just a card back is all. I mean, we scavenged the whole attic, everything, right?
Yeah.
And so he's showing me this picture in his hand. He's like, Dad, is this, what is this? And he sends me a picture. Right? And I was like, oh my God. I was like, that's got to be my Lion-O from my childhood. I said, where did you find that? So my mom has a grand piano that she's had in our living room my whole life, right? And he says, I was underneath there playing with the cat, and I was looking up, and I saw some little orange leg hanging off of the inner, that's got like large pieces of wood underneath that hold the piano together. He's like, so I just went up there and grabbed it, and that's what I found. So, and it was like not even played with. It was like I grabbed it and I hit it, and I must have forgot all about it.
That is so cool. That's a
cool
great
thing is I was probably right close to that age, 10 years old, when I put it there. And then my son at 10 years old finds it for me.
I love that.
So that to me is, that history to that piece, is definitely. And then, of course, I always joke to the other people. I said, well, then I'd have to grab my double telescoping figures on the card. And, if it was life or death, those would be the few things I'd have to grab. There's some things that are just irreplaceable.
That's awesome. I just picked up that Lion-O because of that. I've been trying to hunt down just some of the vintage figures that I grew up playing with. I picked up that. I picked up a couple. You remember the mask? So if you look at my video, you'll see I have an additional room to all this. That's all the non-Star Wars and G.I. Joes and He-Man and all that. So that's nice.
Like the G.I. Joes, I collect the carded figures in the package the same way I do Star Wars. So it's 1982 through 1988.
Yeah.
And it's every variant, and it's in that room. But I've got He-Man in there that, like you said earlier, you'd only like to collect certain ones that you like. So that's what I did with so many different lines, like Mask and Jones and Transformers and just so many different things in there. It's just like a little bit of a mixed thing.
Oh man, you're gonna have to send me a picture. So I collect others, not just Star Wars stuff. I collect all my old, just the ones like the Secret Wars. Remember those, the Secret Wars and the Superpowers? Yeah,
so I have the whole Superpowers line in there,
Oh man, that's so awesome.
But it's just it's just certain things that I never played with superheroes as a kid. I was more. It seems really funny to me because I have a friend who is like a superhero nut, but he's 10 years older than me, so he really wasn't introduced to all the Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica. All these different lines that came out when I was a kid. He was at the first part of superheroes and G.I. Joes and things like that. So that's what he collects. But it always seems like you'll either find somebody that loves superhero stuff and that's their main focus, or you'll find somebody that loves all the 70s and 80s toys that you see in my collection.
Right.
So, not that I don't love. I mean, I go over to his house and he just doesn't share his collection, but he's got an unbelievable, like probably one of the best superhero collections in the world. I convinced him to do the same thing with his collection of Migos. He started collecting every single variant of the packaged Migos.
Yeah.
So, those are not easy at all. I mean, you don't see those often. And let me tell you, he's got over 450 regular ones, and then they call them Kreskies. They're a larger card, but so I inspired him to kind of repick back up and did the same thing to him. He fell into the same thing. He sold toys his whole life and still does. But he, selling toys, he gets in all these new products and hot toys, and he's always kind of getting excited about that stuff, but he lost his passion because he thought he had it all. That he had, well, I have one of each of everything I like. And then when he saw my collection, he was like, Jeff, I'd love to do that. I'd collect every one of those. And that's really, I'll be honest with you, we haven't talked in a while. We were on the phone the other day, and he re-sparked a passion in me. That's why I decided the other day, I said, you know what? I said, I'm going to get my original 3-packs back now.
Yeah.
And recollect those. And so it's been super enjoyable. I mean, it's, my first 3-pack delivers to me tomorrow. So that's going to be a pretty special.
Oh, very cool.
Oh, man.
It's scary when it's being shipped, right? Holy cow.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, I want to ask you, because obviously you not only do you have an impressive carded collection, but you have an amazing loose. I mean, I don't even, I know they're loose, but they're graded. And
first of all, if I ever sold my collection, this would be the one case that will stay with me for my entire lifetime. So what you're looking at is, I don't collect bootlegs, but I do collect loose every single country origin. So you're looking at Mexico, you're looking at Spain, you're looking at Top Toys, which is Argentina, you're looking at all these different countries that produce the figures in production. You are looking at every single one of those. So that's what it is. You'll see like for instance, there's it starts out with Kenner, and then it goes into there's some of them that are made only in Japan. That's Takara. So it's every single variant on top of those. So it's every single visual variant, and then every country variant.
Wow.
And what the variants are, what, gun style maybe, or the color?
There's a huge difference. So let me see. So like, for instance, if you look at the Jawas, okay?
Yeah.
Right where you got the cursor right there in the right there. You see the two don't have their hoods on? Right there, both of those. So that's Ledy. That's Mexican company that those figures were made in Mexico, and that was the only place that they made the hoods removable.
So I want to tell you a story, because I think you're going to appreciate this, Jeff. So I was actually born in Mexico, and we didn't move to the United States until I was about 8 years old.
Okay.
So when I was little, I was buying these Star Wars toys, right? So we would go to this store called La Comercial Mexicana, and it's kind of like the equivalent of like the Walmart, right? But it's like the Mexican Walmart.
Right.
And I remember going in there, and my parents would say, all right, you get to pick a Star Wars toy. And I would always look through them and make sure that the back was yellow, because if the back was carved like just black and white, it was the Mexican version. And to me, I was just like, I want the American version. And now I find out that those are the rarest ones. And I will
tell you that is one of my greatest toy lines of all time. Like I've got a picture that you'll see at the bottom of Ledy 12-inch line. That is, I don't care what anybody would give me out of life. That's actually the two on the Chewie and the Vader are Bossa. So that's Peru. That's the only 12-inch. Those are blow molds. So it actually take the Kenner mold and blow plastic into the inside of each one of those to come up with that. And so, it's not necessarily a bootleg, but they're super awesome to me.
But I've been looking for that Sand Trooper and that Jawa. And then when you sent these pictures, I've never seen the green one ever, even in your first videos. What is that?
So that's just the two different colored versions of the Jawa from Ledy.
Wow.
Yeah. So realistically, the green version, see, these ones all came out of, so the boxes were never factory sealed from them. So they never taped them. So when I was dealing with Tom, he had a guy that, long story, had to bring his whole collection back because of the government. And because he was doing some shady stuff. So Tom ended up with this unbelievable, unreal collection. That's where I got my double telescoping figures. That's where I got most of these figures. So, and at the time, I just told Tom I was looking for these figures in dead mint shape, loose, right? And so he would take them out of the box and sell me the figure. Now, of course, now I wished I had every box for them, but they are like dead mint. I mean, they've never been touched or played with or anything. So they're just when you look at them in comparison to the American versions, they're so uniquely different. Just and there's many different differences. Almost every single 3¾ inch Ledy figure is so uniquely different from the Kenner version. Some of them have red capes versus brown. Some of them, have bright yellow paint versus that. I mean, they're super significant. So when it comes to that.
Yeah, the Han looks crazy weird. Same with the Luke. Even the head sculpts are different.
Yeah. Oh no, they're 100% completely different, and they never did the Tusken Raider 12-inch for Kenner. So that's the only way you could get a vintage Tusken Raider.
I actually remember the Han Solo as a kid. I had an uncle that was a little bit older than me that had a bunch of stuff, and I remember he had it, and it was the Ledy ones.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yep.
That Jawa that you have with the capes with the hood that's removable.
Yeah.
So you had two there. Is it just because you have two, or are they different?
So that's got a light stitching and a dark stitching. There's only two different stitches. So, and then as a matter of fact, one of the rarest pieces for Ledy is right next to the right of them. That's a connected hood Jawa for that. So that is uber rare. I mean, super duper duper rare. So because they always did the removable hood, but there was some of them that they just connected it.
Yeah. Huh. That is crazy.
So there's a dark stitch and a light stitch on that. I only have the one, so I got to see. The hood's kind of tight to go on too. It goes on, but it's kind of tight.
Yeah, no, the hoods are all very tight and they're very small. So when they did the attached hood, the hood was bigger. It wasn't a small hood. It was a bigger hood.
No.
So I don't know if it was that, the attached hood is how they first started it. And then they thought, why don't we make a hood removable at that time? So I don't know. I'd have to talk to, I have a super close friend. He's one of my closest friends in the hobby. His name's Luis, and he lives in Mexico City.
Oh.
He's got the most unbelievable Ledy collection on the planet, and probably knows more about it, the history and the figures and
like Black Wampa.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, a friend of mine donated that. His name is Johnny. Donated. He collects a lot of the little Ledy as well, and he's got the Boba Fett one, with the removable rocket.
Yeah.
But he donated that, and we had to wait through customs to get, because it didn't. When I got it, it was missing the hood. So when I got the hood was almost $390 for just that little piece of cloth for the top. But
yeah,
we waited a while. But he's got a source as well in Mexico, like you.
Yeah, so you can. I don't know if you can zoom in there.
Yeah. To the to the Boba Fett or the.
Yeah, I don't know if you can go to that boat. So the Boba Fett Ledy is. I've got two of them. I got the rocket removable one. It's right next to the European ones. You can see the light colored ones. Yeah, that's it right there. So that's the removable rocket, and then next to it's the non-removable rocket Ledy.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
man, that's so cool. And then you had these graded after the fact.
Yes.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, the removable rocket one, I was not certain about, so I didn't buy it for a lot of years. And this guy way back on Rebel Scum days offered it to me. It was graded 90. So, I mean, it's unbelievable, right? And he offered it to me, I don't know, probably 10, 12 years ago, forever ago. Mm-hmm. And he offered it to me, and I offered him. I said, no. I said, I have a tough time with that figure because, it's basically just the rocket's just not glued in, and that's just how it was. But I didn't, until now, we really understand exactly how that is. And it is, what it is, and it's known as that, and so we feel really good about it now. But it was kind of funny. what I offered him, he said, well, he says, I think I offered him $1,000 cheaper because I felt like he was $1,000 overpriced on it. And I just said, no, I said, that's just what I'd want to pay. And I am not kidding you. A year after I gave him that offer, he came back to me and he said, this is all before Disney. So he comes back to me. He's like, Jeff, I could use some money. If you'll still, hold your offer on that, I'll sell it to you. So that was, unbelievable. I mean, there's only probably 2 or maybe 3 90s of that in the world.
Yeah. That's why I remember the Rebel Scum days. That's where I picked up almost all of my Master Replica collection, maybe 15 years ago. And back then, again, you could find one of these Master Replica lightsabers for like $200, $300 sometimes.
Yep.
And now they're crazy. Like I wouldn't be able to jump in.
I moved out of the other basement. I sold all my Master Replica stuff.
Yeah.
I kept my Yoda lightsaber just because my wife bought that for me as a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept the Boba Fett blaster just because he's my dude.
Yeah, that thing is so cool.
Yeah.
So what are the top ones right here?
That's Takara. So that's all Japan.
Oh, okay.
That's the 8-inch line from Japan.
Wow.
Those are cool. Yeah, because I noted the size. I was like, I've never seen them that size.
Yeah, and they came on a square card. It was like a black and white card.
Mm-hmm.
And that's from the 70s, Jeff?
Yeah, those are all, like 1977, I think.
I'm not even really familiar with those Takara. I'm not gonna lie. I've heard of the name, but I just wasn't familiar if it was a later remake version of those or something. I didn't know.
Yeah, and then the ones on the right, they actually did a die cast, like a 6-inch line, and those are the die cast. They did a R2, a Vader, a 3PO. So that my Ledys were up on that top. They were in that case up on the right, and you see that bracket that's right there in the middle. Mm-hmm. It's missing a little rubber stopper on the back of the bracket to your right.
To the right.
Yeah, so it's right in the middle of.
Oh yeah, right here.
Yeah, that one right there. It's missing the bracket on the back, right? Mm-hmm. So I was putting some figures in the case, and I slid the glass across, and it rubbed across the front of that glass. So all those shelves are tempered, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm shattered across, and all of a sudden, it just explodes. I mean, everywhere, right? In the case, just explode that whole shelf, and then my Ledys were all on top of it. Thankfully, one peg broke off in one of them, but not a big deal. They all kind of settled right on top of the other figures because they were at the back.
Yeah.
But what a pain in the butt. We had to take everything out. I had it through while I had a vacuum because we had to get every little piece of glass. But
what a mess.
Lesson learned, you don't ever let glass that's tempered touch metal. Because if it's got any type of flex to it, and it flexes and it touches that metal, that's all it takes.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, all my shelves, instead of doing glass, I did plexi.
Oh, yeah.
The only thing about the plexi, you got to be real careful because I think it scratches easy.
Yes, it does. Yes.
Yeah.
That's what we have to worry about with all the plexiglass that the figures are in too. So.
Yeah, I got 1/2-inch plexi all the way around.
Yeah, this is definitely my most favorite case by far. I mean, it's been the most fun to collect, and it's been, I'm still collecting. I'm still going after some Spain variants, that are not massively expensive, and it's just fun when they pop up.
The chase is the best part. I remember when I was building this gallery, because I was so excited after seeing this deal and getting it going. And my middle daughter came over and she's like, "It looks great, Dad." I go, "Yeah, I just want to get it done though." And she's like, "You need to enjoy the ride, enjoy the what you're doing now. Not, I wanted it done, right?"
Right.
But he was right. I mean, building the displays and whatnot was a blast.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the best, and this was my second big display. If you ever get a chance, I don't know if you ever saw my first videos on YouTube under Jeff's Museum.
I saw the one where it's kind of you're going down into the stairs, and I think it's either your wife or something.
Yep.
Yeah,
we'll show it.
Yeah, I might show a little clip just to walk. I know it's your older stuff, but I might put in a little clip on there. Maybe we can get a newer clip. I don't know if if you have something newer up to date that we could kind of just walk people through.
So I did a Facebook Live.
Mhm.
It's on my Facebook page.
Okay. That's probably the one I saw, to tell you the truth.
Well, that one, yeah, you're right. You probably saw that version. That's the one you probably saw. So if you get a chance, you got to go onto YouTube and just punch in Jeff's Museum.
Yeah.
And it's a 2-part video. That's my old house.
Okay.
And it shows you where I was collecting all the modern stuff.
Yeah.
But it's still, that's where I, first came up with the display ideas, and I just modified them when I did this house.
Yeah. We'll definitely go through it and we'll kind of just show a little bit. So Jeff, when did you start kind of getting into like Regal Robot? How did you get in touch with Tom, and how did you go?
Chewy goes. We were at Celebration, the last Celebration, and we had talked with him so many times at conventions. Had many a personal conversation with him. He signed a ton of stuff for me over the years. And so we were at that show, and I was selling at the show, and I didn't get a chance to go around and really look at everything at the show. And after we left the show is when we found out that Peter had passed. And during that week before he passed, I saw some videos of the stuff at the show, and it showed Michael's Chewy, which he let them use there. So at that time when he passed, I put a thing out on Facebook saying, hey, I heard that they were selling the heads. I didn't know that they were, that they would do a whole body. Yeah. And so they were selling the heads at the show, and they sold 50 of them, but they were sold out. So a friend of mine, Chris, put me in touch with Regal Robot. And so I just told him, I said, look, I really want a head. And they said, well, we can't do a head, but we could probably, do a whole entire body. Yeah. And I said, well, what does that look like? What does that cost? And, and so, but that's just kind of how that came about. And I said, let's just go ahead and
do it.
And, they're great too, because I don't like just dumping a huge chunk of money at one time. Yeah. Even if I've got it, I don't like just throwing it down. And, it's easy when you can go, hey, this is going to be done over, an 8-month period, and we're going to take increments of $5,000, right? So it makes it a lot easier to get to that point. And,
yeah, no, their custom shop is so good. They've done a couple of commissions for me, and every time it's just their customer service is great. I love it. These Jawas are Regal Robot as well? Yeah. Man.
They're great too. They have a voice box with them. So that they have a huge vocabulary that, you don't even realize that a Jawa would say. So it's pretty cool. The Jawa, so I've been building up my custom home company, and I've had very little time in 2020 to really focus on my collecting, because I finally got it displayed in January of 2020. To be honest, it was very overwhelming. It took a lot of time out of me. It took a lot of energy, because I did most everything myself. So when I got it displayed, I really was excited for a while, but it was overwhelming. It was like, God, I don't even want to look at collectibles for a little bit, because it was work to put all that together. And, it took me probably from start to finish, it took me probably 2 years to do the basement separate. Wow. And that was just all in my spare time from start to finish. And so, I really kind of backed away, and I was also going to be buying a larger building company. So I couldn't financially spend anything out of my, I was having to build up a certain amount by summertime. And by summertime, he backed out of the deal, and I started my own deal. And so, it still went into I need to really focus on that for a while. And so we've got everything running and rolling. And when I had that conversation with my friend a few weeks ago, it really, brought me back into the enjoyment of it. And it's tough when, if you ever get rid of something that's a huge part of your collection, so I don't ever advise it if anybody has to do it, because it does take something away that you feel like, oh God, I don't know if I'll have that. So, and it's not that, I mean, from a financial standpoint now, I could just, if somebody was selling the set, I could just buy it. But I still, like I said before, it's not about, there's many guys out there who have no patience and they're just going to spend the money to get it just so they have it.
Right.
Where I'm still very, very, very picky about condition, and I don't feel that, I feel if you're patient, you can find it for the right price.
Yeah. Yeah. I was bummed out, Jeff, because me and Jeff were, after I started on the gallery and started talking to Jeff, met him at one of the celebrations, and then we kept in touch after that. And then I found out that he had sold some of his collection items, and the word gets out when collectibles like Jeff has are on the market. And I was like talking to him, and I remember, I've got some other things in the works, and I was bummed because I didn't know what was going on. And then all of a sudden, just recently, because I'm not on Facebook, and I don't do a lot of that stuff, but I had word that no, he's got a museum. I go, well, he's already had that museum. There, no, it's got a different one. And I was excited to see that he was back in it and doing this.
Right.
It's funny. I know exactly what you mean, Jeff, about whether you have the money to buy it. I know some collectors recently that Gabe and I have met, and we have got them excited back into the collection thing. And I feel kind of bad, Gabe, because they're sending me pictures of these items that they're purchasing, and we're talking, some of these items are in the 20, 30,000 range, and I'm saying, don't do it. Just wait, chill for a little bit. And he's like, man, I can't help it. I want it right now.
Yeah.
No, but I think you touched on a very important thing, Jeff. And I think it is that. It's that we get attached to these things, not because of the value or the money or, but literally what it brings you back, right? It brings you back to this time in your childhood where just simpler times, you just enjoyed your stuff, your toys. And I think no matter what we collect, a little piece of that just kind of gets stuck in those collectibles. So a lot of times when you do sell them, you're like selling part of yourself. You're just like, man, I don't want to. So and I'm actually excited for you because I know exactly what you mean, like rehunting those whole things, because it literally does bring back that excitement of like, oh man. And then when you open up the box, like I literally just opened up that mask. It was the one where you click on the back, and the back, what is it? His name is it was one of the bad guys. Anyways, it just arrived literally today. And just for me to open it up, and they're not expensive. It was a loose figure, and I was just like, man, it just threw me in this like warp zone, like time machine. And I was like, man, I remember playing with this thing. And I was showing my kids. It's like, look at this is what I used to play with, And that's just the best feeling.
That's the best part about it. That's why I'm excited for tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
I sold my 3-packs back in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking 10 years now, and I haven't purchased any of them since then.
Yeah.
And, this will be exciting for me to add that back to my collection.
Yeah.
So not, as an adult collector, right? So it's gonna be pretty fun to do that. And my whole point to that last conversation about the Jawa was, is I got that Jawa in a box shipped to me like 6 months ago, right? Mm-hmm. But I didn't want to open the Jawa until I was passionate about opening it.
Nice.
Right. So it sat in the box, and literally Michael was like, hey, can you get me some pictures of the Jawa? Right. So literally, Michael, I opened the Jawa that night. I sent you the pictures.
Wow.
And it brought me so much joy to bring me right back into collecting that.
You know what's funny? We could tell. Look at the back.
Yeah. No, it's unbelievable.
Right there. No, I'm saying you could see how I think you just unpacked it. Right?
Yeah. See that you see the packaging.
That's awesome.
No, I just literally opened it up, and my wife many a times was like, "Are you ever going to take that Jawa out?" I said, "I just want to be in the right mindset."
Yeah.
I said, I was so engulfed. When you're going through COVID, we were trying to figure out things, and doing construction, and we were very fortunate that we actually had an abundance of work come in that was so much that it just took every bit of my focus for a while to really concentrate on, because it's not always going to be like that, right?
Yeah.
And so, it was great to finally be in that moment, and it was great to be able to do this show to really, and I was already in a good mindset from talking with my buddy, a couple of weeks ago. He really re-sparked me back up, and that's what started me to get back onto everything. And as a matter of fact, I'm actually going to collect. The first thing I decided to do, because it takes a long time now for me to find any package stuff that I'm looking for, and that gets kind of like, you're just like, oh God, I don't want to be impatient, but at least let me find two items a month or something, And so I decided at that time, because I've got another display area, that I want to display every single back of the cards. There's 80 different backs. But, of course, I was like, I'm not just going to grab the carded, thing with the back ripped off. I'm going to just collect a random figure that has that back that I'm going to get graded in acrylic. And so it'll display really nice and look kind of like the rest of the collection.
Yeah.
So that's where, after I talked with him, I started that, and then got into, I think I'm going to get the 3-packs back, and yada, yada, yada. So it's been, really, really exciting. I mean, when I decided to do the 3-packs, and then I put a thing out on Facebook, and instantly I had, unfortunately, a really close friend of mine ran into 9 of the 16 at an auction that were already graded, really nice grades. I would have been happy with all of them. And he didn't think that I was recollecting them, so he didn't even reach out to me. But thankfully, I got 3 that he had left. So,
So the ones that you're getting ready to get tomorrow, are those different graded ones? Or are those the ones that you have?
Definitely, yeah. They're not my original pieces, no.
Yeah.
Because Kevin, the producer of Marvel, he doesn't even display his stuff, I don't think.
Yeah,
Boxes, and he just keeps it, I guess. I'm not 100% sure. So we talked about one day, my buddy here who has the whole superhero collection of comics, he's got every single comic that you can, first Superman, first Batman, everything.
Wow.
Right? I mean, he's got everything. And I've got like the reversal of his stuff, so it would be amazing. We even talked about, like, we should just like buy a place and create like a 10,000 square foot museum.
Yeah.
I could build out, and we could actually just put everything behind glass and secure everything, and, get security, and, secure it really well. And then just do like a toy show and get people involved with it, and then start, charging admission. People can go there and see the place.
Yeah.
Cover the cost.
People would probably donate to the place to make it, if they see that, we don't have something, and it'd be great to add to the museum, because that's what it's all about. It's just about, it would be great to, that's what everybody enjoys when they go over to anybody's house is, wow, I've never seen that, or wow, this is great to know that this exists.
Yeah.
The hunt's on still,
Right. No, and again, I think it goes back to that whole thing with that feeling that, you're bringing this joy to people, like even just looking at your collection, because you're bringing them back to that, right? Like especially seeing them in that scale, right? So many, because it really puts you back into walking into Toys R Us or KB Toy Store or something, where you're seeing a whole display of them, and it's just, that feeling is unbelievable. And I think
that's kind of how it works then.
Yeah, and that's one thing we started noticing.
We had Children's Palace, and for whatever reason, you'd go into a Children's Palace, and it would be like an entire, 40-foot aisle would be one side dedicated to Star Wars.
Yeah.
And then another 40-foot would be He-Man, and then Transformers. It was monstrous.
Yeah. Man.
Yeah. I remember those days are awesome.
Yeah.
I know, and then again, and that's what we started noticing when we started doing, the show and started reaching out to collectors. We started noticing that there's so many amazing collections that are just in a room or in a gallery where, it's literally meant for one person, which is great. But at the same time, it's like, let's show people, let's show, all other people, inspire them to kind of start searching for
saw mine and decided, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to do a different version of something, but it inspired him to do that. And that's what it's really about.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's just about, I mean, because there was really when I first started collecting, there was, you couldn't go, there was no online.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was really no pictures of people's collections.
Right.
And there was nobody really ever, there was maybe little display cases and things like that, but there was no giant collections because you just couldn't find the stuff. You couldn't source it. And that's really why you can build a giant collection now. There's more things being made, but there's also resources to buy anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
But you can find stuff now.
Yeah. And especially, eBay. I mean, eBay just changed the whole landscape with collecting. It's insane.
No, when they first came out, we were seeing stuff that was just mind-boggling to us because we had never seen pieces ever, right? And I mean, so I was collecting for probably, I'm going to say at least 8 years before eBay. So, and it was literally just Toy Shop. And so whatever. Now, there was crazy stuff that was coming out in Toy Shop. It was prototypes and stuff. But, there really wasn't a ton of, just basic carded figures coming out as much because I think people just wouldn't pull them out at the time because they weren't selling for much anything.
Right.
So they just thought, I'm just going to hold on to these for a while, Even if their main goal was to buy them to sell them, they were like, well, I bought these for, $2 or $4 a piece. I'm not going to sell them for $10 a piece, Yeah.
And
so I think that's kind of what was happening during that time, and then eBay just made it easy to sell.
Right.
Not at first, but, once they figured it out and bought PayPal and did all that, they made it so easy to sell on eBay that you don't even need to really know what you have now. You can, if somebody just threw up a collection, start them out at $9.99 and open auction them, as long as they get them pictured right and put the right description, man, they'll go for current market.
Yeah, the secret's out for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
I love eBay and I hate eBay because before it, you could find tons of stuff that, you just never see, and you could get them for prices, and, that was great. But then we never were, there's no way I could ever collect any of my foreign loose stuff. And I would have never known probably I didn't even start collecting Ledy stuff until Celebration 4. So that was, whenever that was. That was when I first started collecting it. And then Tom Derby said, Jeff, I'm starting to get into these, and they're so unique. You're really going to love them. And I thought he was just trying to sell me more stuff. I was like, no, let me look at them. And so when we were at the show, somebody came from Mexico with like a big plastic bag, and they were in pristine shape, right? But I was like, what is this? Why is this cape red? And they were like, oh no, that's how it is. But they, so that's just, it's just a fun story of how you get into everything.
Yeah. And again, for me, that's an extra special thing because, again, I tell this story, that I grew up, in Mexico and all that. And when I came to the United States, I didn't speak English, so I only knew Star Wars, and that's really the only English that I knew, right, when I came over here. But again, I remember vividly grabbing the Ledy boxes and looking on the back, and they were just literally printed. It was like cardboard with just black.
They're gray.
Great, yeah, it was gray cardboard, and I remember seeing it was literally like just black and white printed images on there, and I'd be like, no, I want the yellow bag, and I would put it back.
It's funny.
It's funny.
Yep. Yeah. So, and there is, and even to today, I would say that the Ledy package stuff that's actually packaged, not re-glued. I mean, and that's one collection where the re-glued stuff still sells for great money.
Yeah.
People just can't get a factory seal, so they'll pay, $1,500 or $2,000 or $2,500 for a resealed one, and that's never ever heard of. But everybody's really upfront about it, and they're like, hey, this is a resealed one because there's some characters like Boba Fett on that. If you had him sealed, he would be unbelievable money.
Yeah.
You know, where, you know, you could get one that's probably resale for $2 or $3 grand, maybe, you know, just the card back sells for probably 1,500.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, that set, I mean, my buddy Luis, you know, he's gonna put out a book that's gonna be on nothing but
good.
Mexican made toys from Ledy.
Yeah.
So we can't wait, man, because his collection is out of this
awesome.
world when it comes to that. He's got an amazing American collection as well.
No, but the Mexican toys, I actually just ordered a Lion-O claw. It was like a plastic claw.
Oh,
yeah. Have you seen those? The claw thing? And I ordered a Messenger Z, one of those like blow, like you said, like the ones that they would blow the plastic, and it was just basic plastic, but it was a big Messenger Z. It was probably about 18 inches. And I remember I had it as a kid. And I saw it on eBay, and I was like, I gotta buy it. It's just
Right.
That's awesome. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us and chatting with us and showing us your collection. I guarantee there's going to be so many people that are going to be so inspired just by your collection, by your stories. You know, it literally it's inspiring. We really appreciate you taking the time and sharing it with us.
No, I'm in the right headset, you know.
Good, yeah.
Into that head, what happens is they sell their collection because they just kind of get burned out because it is challenging. They can't find things, or things become too expensive, and they're elitist, and so you find out. So just, it's great to just get back in the mix of things, and it's the right timing for me. And I mean, I still enjoy. Obviously, I would still enjoy going down to my basement all the time and walking around, but there's still a different deal when you're fully in the mix and you're finding things and you're enjoying it and you're getting new things in the mail. Or we're just going to toy shows, which we couldn't really do last year. So
sucks.
And if you have time, we're gonna invite you back because I want to go over your second collection room because I have a feeling we're gonna be blown away by all the G.I. Joe, Transformers. I mean, I love that stuff. I know, Michael, you're not too much into it, right? But that's what I grew up on. So I mean, we're gonna have you back if you'll have us.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great. We could definitely talk about that at a different time. That'd be good.
Absolutely. Cool.
All right.
Well,
I'll have more of my 3-packs back, and nice to do a little catch up on that. And, I mean, there was other cases. There was other stuff that I didn't take pictures of. We didn't share the whole thing in here. It was just some of the major things.
You're more than welcome back anytime to show because honestly, we could have a whole show on each shelf. Like we could literally spend hours probably you going over each section of your collection. So I totally understandable. There's just no way we can get through all that in one episode. So I'm sure we'll be in touch and we'll invite you back on. Michael, any final words?
Well, Jeff, first off, it's awesome that, I call you friend. You're a super cool, classy dude, and I'm glad we were able to finally put it together, right? Took a little bit of time, but we made it happen, didn't we?
That's good. It's good. I apologize. I just get so busy. It's one of those things where, for one, I knew that you wanted to see the Jawa, and I just wanted to be in the right mind space and the right night. And we put it together. I put it together and I called my wife down when I put,
I heard her laughing. I heard her laughing. It was awesome.
Yeah. So I put the little, speaker box up, and, I really got a really great kick out of it. I love, the Jawa is one of my favorite things. So
me too.
Really cool. They're actually working on 2 pieces for me right now.
Oh, nice.
They're working on a Wicket and a Chief Chirpa.
Oh, nice.
They were going to do the low grade because that's what I wanted over the Chief Chirpa, but they can't find the hair for the low grade because it's got too many variants in it.
Yeah. I think I have a little, I think it's low gray. No, I have a little swatch.
Oh yeah.
It's so funny.
That's awesome.
I think that's Low Gray. Oh no, it's Tebow.
Yeah.
Tebow Ewok fur.
Low Gray was the medicine man Ewok.
Yeah, he's
cool.
Thanks so much.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. And guys, everybody that's been watching, thank you so much for joining us. Come back next Saturday. We'll have some more Star Wars content, some more interviews. Thank you again, Jeff, for joining us, and may the Force be with you guys.
All right, you guys as well. Take care.
Watching everybody.